Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. So, I'll be presenting about how that inventive concept enabled semi-automatic test of patent is applicable in Indian patent regime. So, it is a semi-automatic test in a sense. It says that both IT advancement as well as human intervention is required to understand the inventive concept to determine the patentability criteria. So we are going to say how it is applicable in Indian patent regime. So the earlier speaker has nicely told what are the inventive concepts, what are the approaches they are trying to do in determining the patent eligibility and patentability criteria. So I will try to highlight this one. This is not any specific patent regime, but it is applicable for the whole global issue, global perspective concept. So the enablement is for the whole global perspective. Now, coming to the Indian perspective, we are going to check how it's whether applicable and adaptable or compatible. That's the way we are going to say. And she has specified about that Polish, how it's applicable into the Polish patent regime also. So we are all aware about all the three criteria: novelty, non-obviousness, and patentability and utility criteria. So in Indian context, which includes the exclusive exclusions in the sections 3 and 4. But having said this, let us see how it is applicable, how it is adapting that inventive concept approach. So here, having she explained everything, so I am going to say the broad approach. What is the things? And we can see there are 10 tests in total. So I will segregate those tests into the 3 components, like well-definedness, where it will where 1 to 4 tests will try to describe about the well-definedness. And case of novelty and non-obvious, which has 5 plus 6 tests. I mean totally 5 to 7 tests, which includes 5 plus 6. I will tell about in detail what are these 5 plus 6 tests, which is to be done before 7th test. And the patent eligibility test, which the next speaker will land about, which is 10 to 8 test. Okay, and we can see that if it's inherently adopted globally, we can see that we can have some uniformity in getting the patent grants and even for the patent protection also. So having said this, we will discuss how it is going to be adapted, this 10 test in Indian patent regime. So here, the well-defined says that's 1 to 4 test. She has explained in details how that. So far we are having the classical claim constructions in a sense. We have the elements of the claims in invention, and we will try to say, okay, this element is whether, how far different, all those things we will try to say from the prior art, and I will do some understanding about that. But here, all this approach in Indian construct is classical claim approach. But here, okay, fine, stop. This is not going to solve. It is to have more preciseness. She has clearly told that clarity. Those are very important criteria. Just to have that one, we have to go further in detail. As Feynman said that we can have the more interesting thing at the smallest level. So we are going to further level to understand how it is going to advance our understanding of the patentability. That's the thing. So we have to disintegrate the compound inventive concepts into further level, that's called elementary inventive concepts. So how elementary, all those things are technical details, but here I have said this one, but it should have the lawful disclosure. So the lawful disclosure should say the disclosure should be as complete as possible, and beside that, it should be more definite. It should say the route, how the invention has achieved, what is the route, and the means how it has achieved. Beside that, whether it is enablement is possible for that person skilled in the art. So these are the 4 tests within the well-definedness. Having said this, we will try to see how it is adaptable in the Indian patent regimes. So we know that the lawful disclosure is adapted in India, which is test 2 of the 10 test, and definitely is also said where it should have the completeness and sufficiency should be there. And also the enablement is also there. These are the things generally followed in Indian, and you can see that the appropriate closeness between the well-defined, between the test defined under the well-definedness. So what about the one, which is still to be considered? So we can say that all these tests are decided under disclosure level. So that is the primary criteria to be considered. But if it is the disclosure level is not sufficient, and it can be invalidated or revoked at any stage. There are different stages during patent procedure, even after the patent grant. So now we'll see that. So the lawful disclosure is there in INSI test, it's inventory test. I call it short INSI test. So in Indian scenario also, we can find that equivalent. Section 10 also says that. Even Rule 13 is compatible with that one. And it is well defined here in the case of low water versus low water gas case. And also you can see that definiteness is also there. So here also there are limits of the limits of the claim should be limits of the claims. The words are very important. Limits of the claim should be clearly and distinctly. That's the word they are specifying that. There should be definiteness in the statement of the inventions. And having said these things, all these things should have the enablement property. In India also we have that one. So it is also, we can see from the enablement test where we can find from that well-definedness test. But in case of the claim construction in India, the classical judgment says that we should construe the meaning of the claims from the specification of the patent to understand how far the claim is and what is it level of inventiveness it is likely to say. But in case of INSI test, it is more ahead of that one. So here we can see that it's a classical claim approach is there, but in INSI test it is further ahead of that. And the earlier speakers mentioned about how far the US courts and the European courts are also trying to evolve with that inventive concept for better clarity. But still they are also at primary stage, they are also not in a state to understand how it is to be adapted. No, but this inventive concept test is going to give us a better approach on that one. So having seen the 4 tests, now we'll switch over here. That here, as we mentioned about in detail, I will say this is not only disintegrating elements into inventive concepts, we can see that it is bottom to top approach. Both ways should work. That's very important because this will give a better clarity. Just chopping from bigger things to smaller things, we should aggregate into smaller things to bigger things to make it better understanding whether the way we approach is correct or not. So now, before going to that other remaining test, we'll see how far the issues are considered in Indian regime. For considering novelty and non-obviousness, in case of novelty, not only prior art is considered, the date of priority is also considered. In the considering the prior art, besides that, the person should be the person skilled in the art should say whether it's obvious or not. Is one of the base criteria to decide whether the invention is there. But all the things are based on the claim which is evolved with we can see from the latest judgment where they told this is the case challenged under novelty and inventiveness, where they told the essential elements should be there in the inventions, and essential elements, and they told there's a distinction between the essential elements and non-essential elements. They also tell something should be how to make the difference also. But the last point what I have to say is elements. They're still trying to find the picture from an elemental level, but we are above the level. The inventive concept test is above the elemental level. So here, having said this one, they did not find, they did not say anything about how far the element should be independent, how far each element should be non-equivalent to each other, because this is a challenging task which can't be done at a bigger level. So we have to go further level to understand it. So the other 3 tests, so nano test, 7th test has to be done before, has to be